Good morning, everyone. It is Sunday, February 16th. It has actually been 3.5 weeks since I did my last video. A lot has happened. The last video I did on a Wednesday, January 22nd. And a lot of things happened in between. So I was thinking a lot about a topic I wanted to discuss, and about a week and a half ago I thought of a topic and I said, okay, this is a topic I'm gonna talk about in my next video. And then something would always come up. I mean, like everything in life, just like all the crazy things that have happened. But the topic that I thought about and that I want to talk about is communication. So communication falls under a large umbrella, and there's so many different ways of communicating. Communicating with words, communicating with actions, communicating with your facial expression, communicating without communicating, with silence. So there's so many different ways of communicating. And initially I thought of just one specific way: talking. Communicating is talking to someone and expressing what you're feeling. And this came up because one of the things that did occur was me and my husband flew to Florida to visit my in-laws. In reality, we felt like it was a wellness check that we were doing, because we were trying to communicate verbally through many ways and forms, through phone calls, videos, text messages, voice messages, everything. And we could not communicate with them. So me and my husband sat down and discussed. I mean, for a while, I kept telling him, take a flight, go over there, see what's going on. And that was the original plan. But then it got to a point where it got scary, and we decided, you know what? The two of us need to go and see what's going on. So that was the way we felt that we would resolve this issue of the non-communication. And obviously this is a verbal communication. And me and my husband are the type of people that we like to confront things. Like, I don't beat around the bush. I don't like to kind of sweep things under the rug. I want to tell you how I feel. You tell me how you feel. Let's discuss it and let's keep it moving. Like, I don't know, I just think it's just a healthier way of moving forward, and just for your mental health and stability, and for everyone around you. I mean, my kids are watching this. What am I teaching them? To avoid and ignore things, not face it head on and resolve it. So anyway, that was one form of communication, which we felt that, there were other forms of communication that were taking place by the lack of communication, by the lack of returning our phone calls, by the lack of answering our phone calls, by the lack of replying to our messages. At a point, we thought, you know what, they may not open the door for us. But, eventually they did. We went. A lot of things were resolved, spoken. And then that opened up a different question about communication. Everyone's different types of communication. So because me and my husband are the very verbal, open type, we can't expect everyone to be the same with us. So for me to get some peace and clarity and stability and calmness in my life, I have to tell you how I feel. Sometimes you may not like it. It may not be the form of communication that you appreciate or like, but that's a form of communication I do. So I do try to be mindful of other people's comfort zone in their communicating. But I am very honest, and I will tell you, well, listen, this is why I'm here. This is why I'm taking this action. This is why I'm moving forward. And if you don't like it, I'm okay with that. You tell me what works for you, and then we'll proceed. You don't like us coming here and confronting you and discussing what's going on, and this is why we're here. Tell me, and we will never do this again. But if there was the form of communication that we were trying to do, if it would have taken place, then this would have never occurred. Anyway, so you can see how it like blossoms into different forms and ways to communicate. So we got there, we did that, and that's it. And then like we set a precedence. Like we said, this is not the first time this happens. In the past, this has occurred. And then, then we communicate a little bit and then it dwindles again. We want it to be consistent. If it's not going to be consistent, then let us know. So one, we don't waste our time. Two, we communicate this with our children, because not only was it affecting us personally, it was affecting our kids, because they were like, wait, why don't we talk to them? Like, why aren't they answering? Like, why aren't they replying? Because events happen, birthdays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, and they're wondering. And a form of communication that me and my husband have with our kids is we tell them a lot. We talk about a lot. We include them in a lot, just because we want them to know what's going on. Growing up, I felt like there was, I don't want to say a lack of communication, because I feel like my parents did tell us a lot, and sometimes they told me and my brothers a little too much. Sometimes I wish that some of that communication wasn't there, because it was scary for us, as children, when parents would tell you, we have no money, we're struggling, we can barely pay the mortgage or the rent or, whatever. Like it's stressful. And I'm not going to lie. It is something that we grew up with, and I find myself doing it with my kids also. And I wish I didn't. But again, because it's something that was learned, or that was expressed so often and so frequently, that then it's kind of like it continues. But then, you catch yourself, because I do catch myself, and I'm like, oh, I shouldn't be telling that. Like, I shouldn't be worrying a child about my financial situation. Like, well, they should be worried about their childhood and, living in it. Because I felt like a lot of my childhood was lost because of it. Like, I grew up very fast, but it was very different. Like, my parents barely spoke English. Me and my brothers did a lot of the things that we now do for our kids. We didn't experience a lot of the childhood activities that our children are experiencing, because we were always working with our parents, trying to help them. So it was just a different childhood and upbringing, and it was a different way of our parents communicating with us. So we felt like, let's communicate with our kids and tell them things. Sometimes my husband will say, like, you're taking away their childhood because you're telling them too much. And then sometimes I'm like, yeah, but they, like, they need to know this is real life. Like, one thing I always communicate, which a lot of people may look frown down upon, is I always tell my kids, like, I'm gonna die one day. One day I'm gonna die. I don't know if it's today, tomorrow, 20 years from now, 50 years from I don't know, but I am gonna die. And you're gonna die. Like, everyone is gonna die. That's one thing that's guaranteed. We're guaranteed to die. A lot of times people don't like to communicate that because it's scary. Like, who wants to talk about death? Who wants to prepare themselves for death? No one does, but it is life. It is the truth. And it's funny, I kind of fall into this conversation because I just listened to a podcast that Jay Shetty, like I always talk about. I just listened to a podcast on my way to work, and he was talking about how successful people spend their time. They don't waste their time. And one thing he mentioned was that they focus on the facts. So they don't waste their times on feeling an emotion because they heard something, someone said something, they may assume something, which again falls into the communication. So you may assume that someone is ignoring you because they're not getting back to you, because they're not communicating with you. So you're emotionally sad or hurt or depressed, but then you don't know the facts. You don't know the facts if this person's not getting back to you because they're busy. They didn't get your phone call. They changed their number. They lost their phone. There's so many things that could have occurred that could be a fact of why they didn't communicate with you. So again, is it worth it wasting your time worrying about something that you don't know the facts about? So one thing is that successful people do not waste their time until they find out the facts. So one thing, like I said, I always talk to my kids about is death. Like it's a fact that we're gonna die. Now I always communicate that I wanna make my life as long as possible. So what do? I work out, I eat healthy, I take supplements, I do whatever I can to try to live longer, live healthier. One thing, I do a lot of research, again, going back to the facts. So I research, what is good for me, what is good for my children, what is good for me at this point in my life, because we change, we're always evolving, and we're always growing, and our hormones and our body, and we're aging. So we gotta move with it, and we have to embrace it, because if we fight against it, I mean, it's impossible. We can't fight it against time. So back to my communication topic. So I communicate this with my kids. Like, they love Coke. My kids and my husband, they love Coke. They love soda. They love sweets. They love junk food. And I'm not gonna say I don't or I didn't. I did enjoy drinking, maybe not so much Coke, but some sodas. But I realized what it was doing to my body. So I tell them, like, I had stomach aches. Or my daughters, like, they always have a lot of stomach aches. So I'm like, you know why your stomach hurts? Because you're eating junk food. You're drinking soda. You know how much sugar is in that? And then through my research, through looking into things, I'm like, you know how much sugar is in a Coke? Like, imagine all that sugar going in your body. It's inflammation. It's making your stomach hurt. This causes cancer. And then they are just like, you're so dramatic. Here you go, exaggerating. And I'm like, I'm not exaggerating. Like, I'm being honest. I'm looking at the facts. I tell them all the time, working out. You guys need to work out. You need to exercise. That's going to help you live longer, live healthier. 1 hour, and correct me if I'm wrong. I believe this is what I heard. It may not be exact, but 1 hour of exercise adds 3 hours of life. So then they'll joke with me, because I'll say, a can of Coke takes away 12 minutes of your life. And then my son or my daughter, one of them, joke like, oh, I'll just exercise for an hour, and then those 12 minutes that I'm losing in the Coke, I'll gain it back, because I'm gaining 3 hours of life. And I'm just like, seriously? Like, it's like, I'm trying to help you live a healthier, better life. And this is all by communicating. And they see it. They see me wake up early. They see me go to bed early. They see me changing my lifestyle. And it's baby steps. It doesn't happen in one day or right away, but it's baby steps. And it all falls back to the communication. And the way of communicating, I verbally tell them, I physically do it, so they see me. So it's like a nonverbal, it's more of a visual communication. So they see it, and they see the changes in my mood, in my body, in my skin. They just see the changes, and it's obvious. So no matter how much I say it to them, until they feel it, until they see it, until they want to do it, they're not going to do it. So I'm just going to continue to do it for myself. And that's another thing I communicate with them. Like, don't do anything for me. Like, I'm not getting any benefit from it. You're the one that's going to feel better, look better. Your stomach's going to stop hurting. Your skin's going to look better, etc., etc. So I don't want to make this super long, but I did want to discuss communication this time around. Even though I'm sure I'm going to circle back to this at some point in another episode. And I think I have spoken about communication in other episodes. But this one I wanted to kind of like horn in on, because I felt like I was lacking in communication by doing the videos, because I had so much going on in my life, with going to visit my in-laws, and my father-in-law got open heart surgery. Then my youngest daughter got her tonsils and adenoids removed. And like, it was just like a lot of things going on. I went to Florida to see my in-laws with my husband. Then we came back. Then my husband went for the surgery. Then he came back. Then my daughter got the surgery. And now she's like recouping. He's recouping. So things are looking good. But I just want to emphasize that everyone says communicate. It's easier said than done. It's something that is difficult. It's not easy. It's not easy to open your mouth and say what you're feeling. But the more you do it, the easier it becomes. And then you feel such relief, and you're just like, wow, why didn't I do that before? Like, wow, this is all I had to do. So just build on it and continue it, because then the people around you are going to know that, okay, this is her way of communicating, is by talking, or this is her way of communicating by texting, so let me just text her. Or her favorite way of communicating is voice messages, so send a voice message. So just learn people's communication styles. Some people communicate by action, by visual, by what they see. So let's just learn that and embrace it and try to make ourselves comfortable in our communication styles and others comfortable in their communication styles, because you don't want to force your form on someone. And you can express it like, hey, this is how I communicated. You may not like it. If you don't, please tell me, and tell me what's your style, or how do you like to communicate. But let's keep that communication open. Let's embrace it, grow it, teach our kids to communicate, because in this new age, this new world, it's so hard to do it. Take some time out, and it doesn't have to be a long time. It could be a few minutes, and just work on it little by little, and whatever form works for you, your form of communication. All right. Thank you very much. I am glad to be back, and let's make it a productive day, and talk to you next time. Okay, let's communicate. Bye.